Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. Um,
Don Fisher, Geek Vibes Nation as well.
and I'm really excited because we are talking Megan. Um, I have so many thoughts, but I wanted to let you chime in first. What did you think of it?
Yeah, so this is a movie. The buzz was so big, and I try my best. Like I post trailers on my Instagram, and sometimes I watch them, sometimes I don't. But since it was a horror film, I was like, I gotta watch this one, and it drew nothing but intrigue for me because it's like you're kind of by the movements of Megan in the trailer. You're like, okay, is she a robot? Is she an android? Is this a person that got turned? You don't know exactly what to expect. And I went into it. I tried my best to go into every screening with zero expectations, but I really wanted to like Megan because Megan looked creepy. It's the eyes, man. The eyes get
Yeah.
you. But no, I was pleasantly surprised by how fun the movie is. And I know people get weirded out when you say a movie about anything murderous or homicidal is a fun movie, but when you're a horror fan,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're like, no, it's a fun movie. I had a lot of fun with it. Megan, again, is creepy. She's very Gen Z. And I love horror movie where we get kind of this societal commentary to kind of interweave into the story. It kind of gives it that extra punch. But I had a lot of fun with it. Is it the perfect movie? No. Is it like super duper original concept? No, but nothing is anymore. But what they were able to do with the budget they had, because Blumhouse is very good with taking a small budget and making either really, really good films or pretty decent films. And this was one of the ones where it's higher on that list for me. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I think you totally nailed it on all accounts. Like very fun. And I will say, you did mention like it does have a lot of like really interesting social commentary, which I did not like. Listen, I would have been just fine with like a stupid killer robot
Yeah,
doll movie, but you give me a little something extra, you give me like some something to kind of chew on for a while, and then that's even better. So I'm kind of curious because you said you have kids, right?
yeah, I was a stepson.
So did some of those themes kind of hit harder of like raising a kid and like screen time and like parenting and
Yeah, I mean, because it's with nowadays when initially going into it when your kid's young, you don't want them to have a phone or a tablet really or anything like that. But you know that with the way the world is, it's so fast paced and they could be here or there, and you have this item that can connect you to them when they're at their grandparents, when they're at daycare or wherever they're going to be, school. It's like, well, let me just get them this thing, and eventually it does turn into like, oh well, they don't need to go do this thing because they're playing on their phone, and you do kind of go back and forth of like, how much is too much, and when should I take it away, and what app should I let them be on and not be on, and it does become this balancing act of like, who is there three parents or is there two parents? Is the phone like the extra parent? And you do see a lot of it more now where their kids are 1 or 2 years old and their tablet to keep them busy while the parent goes and whether in the kitchen, whether they're cooking, whether whatever it is, but it becomes a crutch and you see it get used more and more and more. And my stepson's 10 going on 11 now, so it's not as bad. He knows when hey, I don't need to play with it right now, but I can see if they're raised on it very like this new, like the kids who are the Gen Z who are having kids now. I mean, their kids as soon as they pop out tablet. So it does like the film does touch on that, and especially with our main character, who is somebody who doesn't necessarily want to be a parent, and who, if they did have a kid, is reluctant. You do go, oh well, if I don't have these natural maternal instincts, maybe this device will help me where I lack. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I'm not a parent, but I have a niece, so I feel like I get like the best of hanging out with like my niece, but then it's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
Like
go home.
yeah. And she's getting to the age where like we think she might be a budding horror film fanatic. So I'm like my fingers are crossed. But yeah, I think that's such an interesting kind of angle because this easily could have just been like a Chucky knockoff. And I know a lot of people have been comparing it to that, but I think it's one thing that I heard that I will readily agree with. This is kind of what they were, I think, were kind of aiming for the Chucky remake, but this does it so much better.
Yeah, for sure. I do remember that unfortunate Chucky. They tried to do the whole tech thing, and it did not fail. Like you said, this one, if it has to be compared to Chucky, and to bring it into the now, this is a better version.
Um, I think one aspect, and I loved it to hear what you think about it, but like I love how this was like, all right, we're gonna be campy as fuck, and it's gonna be fine, and you're gonna love it. And I appreciate a movie that's so like on the nose about it. Like it's not so much where it's obnoxious, but it's like, you know, people are going to be laughing at this regardless. So why don't we be in on its own joke?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from the opening scene with the little goofy song of the little company. Yeah, and that's what I liked is that, like you said, they were in on the joke. So as soon as it starts, you're like, okay, they're not trying to be this super groundbreaking thing. They're not trying to be like, a campy version of Ex Machina or nothing like that. They're like, hey, don't take it too seriously. We're gonna have fun, and I think that's why you're able to yeah, they are able to lean on like your mixture of like a Frankenstein with Chucky and iRobot and the Orphan, kind of all rolled up into
Mm.
one. But yeah, I mean, I love the lean, and that's why I like Blumhouse. Blumhouse knows, like, hey, we can. If this is horror, we can do what we want to. We can make a super gory killer robot movie, or we can, have fun with it and kind of balance the two, and that's what it looks like they did.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like you said, it's not a perfect film. I mean, there are things that I feel like are aspects that I think maybe could have been a little bit tighter or a little bit more concise. But at the end of the day, I saw it with a really good crowd. Everybody was having a great time. Did you see this with a big crowd?
I did, and I said the same thing. This is a movie that you go see with like a bunch
Yeah.
of people, because and it's weird because there is like, if you take like last year, Crimes of the Future, right, the Cronenberg film. That's one where you want to be kind of in solitude and take in all this body horror. But something like this is like kind of like your Conjuring films, the ones you want to experience with a lot of people, because if there is like laughing or people kind of like commenting, you don't really miss too much because they know that it is going to be this level of camp that allows for breaks in dialogue.
Yeah. So I'm gonna probably keep this as spoiler free as possible, but I am gonna touch upon maybe like a few maybe minor spoilers. So I'm just like throwing that out there. Because I'm gonna talk about one of the deaths because I think it was actually legitimately surprising to me. So this is your minor spoiler warning. But the kid, or I guess kid, he was kind of like, I guess that was part of the joke. He was sort of like maybe a little bit too old for this.
So you don't feel as bad.
Yeah. But um that whole scene was crazy. But then he gets his ears ripped off, and then I'm thinking, oh, okay, so like they're not gonna kill this kid, they're just gonna like maim him. um, but nope, it's like
Yeah, I was really kind of. I know it sounds fucked up, but I was happy that they went there because I was like, in a horror film, that we have certain rules, but sometimes, like you said, with that kid being like this ambiguous age, you do want to be able to like, no, he's an asshole. Get rid of him. And the crowd kind of like, hell yeah, fuck him. We don't deserve like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because he was a monster of a kid, and sadly, I remember growing up, and he reminded me of a kid that I went to school with in Utah, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's exactly what you envision yourself doing to him when you're a
yeah,
kid." But no, like I'm glad they went there. I mean, I know usually, especially in the recent years, it's always been like you don't touch kids in horror films, and and hands off animals, and Megan was like, "All
yeah.
right, I don't have to play by human rules because I'm not a human."
Yeah, and I will say that like I'm definitely one of those people that like you could like kill a person, that's fine, but like I'm like especially dogs, but like I was kind of again this minor spoilery, but like they do kill off a dog, but I will say the dog was an asshole. I'm not justifying it, but and plus it's not a real dog, so it's fine. Don't come at me. I mean no, listen, I love animals. I have a pug. Um but yeah, like I was really thankful that they kind of didn't like you didn't even really see like I mean, yeah, you know, it's dead, but you
Yeah.
don't really see it. It's kind of like a pretty quick thing. Which I was like I appreciate because like I am definitely one of those people that's like kill 1,000 people, that's fine, but like a dog or something.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm like, take the dog if you got to, because I know like the animals that I like have an affinity for, they get brutally slaughtered and everything. I'm a big reptile fan, so if you see a
Oh,
snake in a movie, the snake's
yeah.
getting ripped apart. What's that show? Killing It. I think on Peacock, the whole show was about snake hunting in Florida, and
Mm,
I'm like, I was just have a snake downstairs and y'all just
yeah.
chopping the heads off and lighting them on fire. And I'm like, damn, yeah, I wouldn't do this to a dog.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, it's kind of wild because you know this it was recently Friday the 13th, so I went back and I was watched the original. I always like watch at least the first three, but like
Mm.
um they like kill a snake. They I feel like that's not even like fake. I feel like they
Oh, I'm
like
sure it's not.
that all I don't know why I always forget about it and it always like shocks me every time I see it, but um so yeah, like I'm trying to think what else you can say about this movie. I mean, again, I think that it has a lot of I mean, I will say like I appreciate the fact that like you know, it's a goofy campy horror movie, but there are some real pathos to it. Like um I'm sorry I can't think of her name, but the little girl is phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
she
I think named Violet something. I can't remember her last name. McGraw, Violet McGraw? I think that's her name.
um that sounds familiar, so you're probably right. But yeah, she killed it. And again, this movie is so smart because it does kind of give you that balance of okay, silly, campy, but like gonna get real. And you know, I mean, you're a horror fan too. We both seen thousands of movies that like you don't care about the characters.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're just like fodder for like the killer. Um but yeah, I think everybody, I mean maybe not every character like the asshole kid, but like a lot of the characters you like really like and you genuinely want to not see them like hurt or anything.
Yeah, and
Um
you kind of feel for, the little girl's aunt because she's put in an impossible situation where, she's like, okay, I have to take her on this role. I'm not built for this role. I had no plans of being in this motherly role, and she just doesn't know what to do. and you know that like she's trying, but she's also like, Megan's here to like to do this for me, kind of, because I'm trying to, progress. So and I guess and that's kind of it's kind of poking. I don't want to say poking fun, but it's kind of taking on like the modern woman versus like the traditional motherly figure, and kind of putting them against each other, and along with like just parenting in general, and I feel like there's a lot more people, men and women, who are kind of in that same boat of like, okay, do I want a kid? Do I not want a kid? I mean, I don't know, because we are told, oh, you're supposed to want to grow up and have kids, and you're like, but what if I don't want to? Like, I don't, and I feel like our generation, especially, we all kind of like started asking the more questions, started thinking for ourselves more. So we do have this question posed all the time: when are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna have one of your own? And you're like, Mama, I just want to live. Like, what are you talking about? This world is crazy. Maybe I don't want to bring a kid into this.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point because it definitely does kind of raise those questions of like, there is this kind of crazy expectation for everybody to kind of like have kids, have it all. I will say you know, as a collector myself, I think one of the most horrifying scenes was like her ripping open this like vintage
No. Oh, it was so bad. And she was hurt on the inside. Oh yeah, we can play with it. You sure you're not? And then and I feel the pain too when they're like, you're not playing with it right. You have to. It does other things. Like, oh, I felt the pain.
Yeah. I was gonna say like what my question for you is like what collectible would make you what would it hurt the most to have to
Oh,
open up?
so I have some comics that I've never opened,
Hmm.
and it kind of reminds me of like 40-year-old virgin when he's like, you know how hard it is as a kid to not want to open these things. I have like a number one cable that I've had since like middle school,
Oh wow.
and I even have some records that were my mom's that haven't been touched, and all the time like, I mean, YOLO, right? But like, no, wait, I don't. So, so yeah, I think some of my comics, though, like, I think you know, especially now when I have like, stepson that I want to pass things down to, and I kind of like, no, you're gonna wait because I know you're gonna open them, and we're not gonna do this. So, what
um
about you?
oh so yeah, I was thinking about this and definitely. So I have a McFarlane 18-inch Leatherface that I kept in the box. I still remember like asking for it for Christmas and was like astonished that I got it. So I kept it in the box all those years, and then I met Gunnar Hansen at a convention, and I had him sign it. And that thing, like, I even like try to keep it out of like the sunlight. I am so extra.
Right.
I'm next level extra about that thing. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, or that, or like some of my sideshow stuff, like figures, like those are like crazy expensive now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like that. I mean, all the horrific scenes, I was like, um, yeah. So, did you think that this I don't think this movie was scary, but I do think that there is some good like atmosphere and like creepy moments. What do you think? What was like the moment you were like, this is
It- yeah, I think the moment for me that sticks out the most was I think it was right after the kid getting his ear ripped off, and Megan is in the car, because everybody that sees Megan at first assumes that she's a kid because she's the size of the little girl, and she's sitting in the backseat of the car, and all you can see is her eyes, and you can't, because her eyes are so like, they're like lifeless but not lifeless, and you're like, is she pissed off? Is she like in this state, state of like, I'm gonna kill everybody in my way? Like, you don't know, because she is so calculated, because she's AI. But just that scene of her sitting in the car, and all you see is her like, I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like, that's a good shot.
Yeah, I think the one, like the moment that kind of sticks out for me, but you're right, that is a really creepy, like her just kind of dead eye looking at them. Was like when she's able to, I guess, kind of mimic other people's voices. So yeah,
Yeah,
when she lures the neighbor, oh, that was
and she
creepy as hell.
rises up. And she's like, "What is this? What are you? Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, that I think was a nice rising tension and a really nice payoff. And yeah, I mean, I really have to give this movie credit for, trying to kind of be like layered and a little bit scary, but like honestly, like this is something like my niece is like at an age where she can kind of hang with, like, this is PG-13, so she could
Yeah,
she could hang with this, but like yeah, like it I kind of like how, so there's a whole debate, and I'm not going to get into it, about like PG-13 horror. Um, I don't know if you're hearing this, but I think I hear that there's maybe like an R-rated cut that might
ooh,
surface, or maybe as like a home video thing. But honestly, I think it's kind of cool because like I think like horror fans, like, listen, I love like all the horror and gore and all that stuff, but like people have to realize that, like, you know there needs to be good starter horror movies for fans to kind of
yeah,
like to just, yeah, to get into the genre. Like, um I mean, I think people of our generation, we probably just watched whatever, regardless of the rating.
right. Yeah,
um
and I do think, like, I remember, I want to say it was like Jessica Alba or Gabrielle Union, and they were talking about like directing something, like maybe an episode of like LA's Finest or something, and they were talking about having to work within the confines of like a rating and a budget, and it makes you become more creative, because when you have carte blanche to do whatever you want to do, you do that, and it takes away some of like our imaginations are very powerful. So when like we don't see what happens to the dog exactly, your mind goes like, what could she have done? We know
yeah,
what she's possibly capable of. So whatever is in your head is 10 times worse whatever they're gonna put on the screen. And like you said, as if for a starter type film, sometimes your imagination is better to kind of like, oh, I bet you it looked like this or this happened, because I know signs. I loved Signs until I saw the alien, and then I was like, "Oh, I
yeah,
wish you never would have showed me what it looked like, because now it just took it away." Because if I see something that I'm not afraid of, that I once was, and I finally see it, and I'm like, "Oh, well," the movie went from being up here to now like this, and then you're like, "Oh, it was alright." So, I do think leaving some things up to interpretation and imagination is better sometimes.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I think it's fascinating because there's so many like reboots and reinterpretations of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for example. And I think what people kind of forget is like that movie is virtually bloodless.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is like a little flickers of blood, but the thing is, you're, like you were saying, your mind fills in the blank. Psycho, you never see the knife go
Right.
in her, but there's people that swear that you see it because your mind, um I think one of my favorite parts had to be like when it kind of became a musical here and there.
Singing Titanium as a lullaby is hilarious.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's kind of on the nose because she is titanium, but I'm
Yeah.
like, it fits so well, I'll allow it.
Yeah, and the good thing, I think um it was announced today. I believe we tweeted about it that they're working on a sequel for
Mhm.
2025, and that's where, because my initial beef with the film was like, man, I wish they could have like focused more on um her, maybe when she does become more like a person, I guess, more deranged. And then I was like, man, I wish they would have got to it quicker, maybe done a little bit more people. But now that we, might have a sequel, the sequels where we probably will get to see her, you know, fly out the handle within the first, 15 minutes and get more body count, the higher body count. And even if they still keep it PG-13, that's fine because, I remember watching which one was it? Friday the 13th part. It was two or three. I think it was three. And the same thing, there's not a whole bunch of blood. You'll see some bodies laying on the ground or hanging somewhere, but it's not overly gory. And normally it's rated R just because the content is like the imagery is haunting or whatever. But that movie almost easily could have been PG-13. I think it's only because they threw some fucks in there, and once you do that, then it's like, okay, it's rated R. But yeah, I do. I think that it warrants a sequel clearly, but we see happen, and I was hoping they would, because I know that, for one, the movie is a big success. I think the budget was like 12 million or something, 21 million, something like that, and then they've made so far like almost 100. Um, yeah, so like they can make a couple more if they want to. So Blumhouse has a sleeper hit on their hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did see that tweet today, and I was thinking like, so I was of two minds, right? So I'm like, man, I gotta wait till 2025. Uh, but then I'm like, if they're gonna take their time with it and not rush it out, like that bodes really well. Like it seems like they do want to kind of take their time and like make something that is maybe as good or hell even better. Like that would be awesome. So since this is Blumhouse, Universal, like I was trying to think of like who it. I mean, not that I would actually really want to see this, but like if they would team her up with some like similar like of their like stable of horror icons, who do you think she should square off with?
Well, I remember seeing like I think a tweet um not long after I think it was like the night it came out, maybe the next day. And of course, it's always like, oh, I'd love to see her, Annabelle, Chucky, and I forgot who the other person was. And it sounds silly, but like it's like, nah, that could be interesting. I mean, we saw Freddy versus Jason, and I was mad that we didn't get more of it. We want to see these showdowns, just for the diehard fans. Like, even if you just put it straight on a streaming service, we will
Yeah.
watch it. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see a human-minded Chucky go against this AI.
Yeah.
Um, that'd be entertaining to me.
Yeah, I would almost pitch like a what if, but for like series, but like for these horror icons to just duke it out. And
Yeah,
it can be like non-canon, but it can just be like something short form because I mean, I think I don't know, we did a whole video about Freddy versus Jason recently, and I think we both kind of were like, it's fine. The best parts were, of course, when Freddie and Jason were sort of duking it out.
yeah,
And it almost got me thinking like it almost would have been cooler just to have like a 30-minute short form.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but well, if there's any writers, producers out there, call me. But any final thoughts before we wrap?
Final thoughts. I mean, if you haven't seen it, go see it. Take as many friends as possible.
Yeah.
Um, because it is. I think this is like, the epitome of a popcorn flick. You sit back and you just let the movie happen, and it's a fun ride from start to finish. And it's one of those ones too where you're legitimately, on the edge of your seat sometimes. Your butthole's puckering. You're like, oh, what's going on? Because you never know, and they did a good job of like not having like your time jump scares and things of that sort. Because it's for an idea that may not feel like, super original. A lot of what they were able to do felt original. Um, but yeah, I think I found that just go see it. Go support horror, and that way we can get more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just echo that. Like, go check it out if you haven't seen it. It's pretty great. You're spot on. This is like such a great film to see with a crowd. Like, even if you can't necessarily like see it in a theater, if like you get, home, like whenever you can rent it or buy it when it comes out, get a group of people together, like that's a good time. Yeah, gosh, it's really fun. I mean, I can certainly see it, already kind of being on my favorite movies of I guess 2023. Gosh, it's like so weird to I'm not used to saying 2023 yet. Um but yeah, so I guess that's it. Definitely I'm gonna do the obligatory please give this video a like, comment, subscribe. You want to be subscribed because we have tons of great content. We upload stuff like almost daily now, so it's awesome. You don't want to miss anything. So yeah, as always, thanks for hanging out with us.